Hello, everybody, and welcome to VRIC Media, where we are bringing the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference to you with our series of expert online panels. We have a great one lined up for you today. We've got E.B. Tucker of the Tucker Letter and Gary Cardone of Cardone Digital Ventures. We're going to be talking about the Orwellian crackdown on free speech worldwide, the looming threat of central bank digital currencies, gold versus Bitcoin, and much more. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for being here. Good to be here with EB. Thank you, man.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Now, both of you have discussed through your various channels that people across the world are going to lose their personal freedoms, and we're going to see more censorship and government control moving forward. That is playing out right now as the UK has turned completely insane, locking people up for protesting or posting about protests, even famously threatening people outside of the UK that if you say something we don't like, we're going to extradite you here. French authorities also detaining the Telegram CEO. Now, they're alleging he didn't control his platform enough, so it's being used by child predators, etc. A lot of people pointing to the fact that that's probably just a cover for the fact that they do not want freedom of speech on platforms such as that. So I want to ask you both, when it comes to this kind of global crackdown, we're seeing it in the EU, we're seeing it in the UK, we're seeing it to some extent in the US as well. Why is it happening? Is it going to continue to ramp up? And how does it all end? And Gary, I'll start with you.
Oh, I was going to give it to EB. Let him go first, set off the Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. The conspiratorial questions are always the fun ones, you know. But I mean, look, I'll just say real quick. I mean, I'm always like shocked at why people think they have this right to, you know, all this personal freedom. I mean, it's really bizarre to me. I mean, it's like it kind of is like they're just trapped in some narrative, you know. And I mean, you almost wonder, like, do they not know anything about history? You know, the cycles are clear, right? I mean, you over long periods of time, you go from total enslavement, you know, and then you eventually people get sick of it, and then they have a revolution, and then they like go all the way back to the same thing again, and it just goes on and on and on. Now it feels personal because we're living in a certain part of that wave, but it's not personal. Nothing in life is personal. It's just what's happening. And you know, if you were alive 600 years ago or something, you would have been like working up the courage to, you know, behead your feudal lord or something, and you know, then 600 years later, you're giving it all away. But it's like this all the time. And so I think for me, it's like I try to sit back and say, I mean, if you see the big picture, it's pretty obvious. And the one thing you're not going to do is run afoul of these, you know, control freaks. And then you ask yourself, why would they not control all the data? Why would they not? I mean, like, what, you know, so it's totally logical that people that are ambitious when it comes to, you know, being in charge of things are going to say, yeah, I mean, I'm going to monitor all that stuff. I mean, obviously, like, what, you know. So I think sometimes it helps to just kind of like get out of today and get back into the bigger picture of things and realize that, like, you know, this is the trend.
Real quick break here, guys. If you are a mining investor, you are without question familiar with the Golden Triangle region in British Columbia. This is one of the most prolific mining regions in the world due to its vast deposits of gold, silver, and copper. Now, for the last 4 years, Dolly, Varden Silver has been busy expanding their high-grade silver deposit in the Triangle, and they are backed by some of the smartest investors in the silver business, including the legendary Eric Sprott, Hecla Mining, US Global Investors, Fidelity, Delbrook Capital, Sprott Resource Corp, and more. If you are curious why the smartest money in the silver business is cozying up to Dolly Varden Silver, then hit the link beneath this video.
I think that's a really accurate viewpoint. Having said that, Mark Zuckerberg in the last 12 hours wrote a letter and has stated so in public that him and the U.S. government and agencies inside the government were complicit in violating pretty much every constitutional constitutional right that I can imagine. They probably violated the terms and conditions of the Facebook thousands of agreements that they may have had over the last 10 years. This isn't going away, man. Okay. This is a little step too far. This is way beyond control. This is fascism, period. You can't define it any other way. Okay. Private entities. But imagine if this was the Catholic Church and the CIA went into the Catholic Church and got confessions, taped every confession on Sundays. Seriously, okay? I mean, somebody has data on my children right now that I did not give through Facebook and through. So we have real coordinated activities between church, state, and businesses. And dude, that's a little different, okay? That's not just a little slippery slope here. We are now we're in extortion land. And people that use these type of techniques, that is what they do. It's their muscle. They don't do what EB and I do, which is grind it out and build a position without having an oligopoly, a duopoly, or a monopoly position, and it's protected. It looks to me like our three-letter agencies are literally protecting large organisms that can control a large number of people. And the sad thing is history shows this never works, dude. We have more freedom today than we've ever had. The problem is it's been free for 40 or 50 years. People have been like getting a lot for nothing. I think they forgot they had all their data stolen. And that's the crime here. All the data has been stolen. And what hasn't been stolen, the other part was not well protected by multi-billion-dollar corporations who continue to pay the DOJ and other entities massive fines and are continued to allow it to operate. This is the part that doesn't make any sense to me. So, and I think taking people out like Telegram, this is a huge, huge mistake. I don't think banning TikTok is the right solution unless you go, we're going to ban everything from every other country that doesn't give us the same rights and egress and ingress as we provide them. That's cool. Okay. You're going to charge me 20%. I'm going to charge you 20%. But killing TikTok is only going to make Google stronger. What we need to do, we need a Bill of Rights for digital for the 21st century. We have no digital rights. It's all very confusing. So this can be in courts for years and years and years, man.
Yeah, very interesting points. EB, you were mentioning cycles of history, and that's a very interesting perspective you took when you said to take a step back and ask, of course, these people would want this level of control because that is exactly where their ambitions lie, is in controlling others. If you're standing back and looking at that through a historical lens, and you're thinking about what can I do about it personally, I know you've got a very Zen attitude towards life, and your thoughts are just enjoy your life while you can, enjoy the freedoms you have while you can. But should the average person out there be worried about these developments? And if speaking of historical cycles, are we going to come out of the other side of this into a better era in the future at some point?
Well, I just, my newsletter this week in the postscript, I wrote an article about how you should avoid using the word should. So I'm not going to say they should be concerned about it. But okay, my philosophy is you can't lose if you don't play. Okay. And my house is, I live in a much smaller house than people would imagine. And it's extremely cool. It's small and it's extremely cool. And there's no television and there's no iPads and there's no, I'm not like a Luddite. I mean, you can see behind me, there's a Bloomberg terminal where Mike's team's telling me what to think all the time. But essentially, we have a sort of like hybrid non-digital digital life. Like there's a lot of time with my kids. We're playing Monopoly Junior and doing all this fun stuff. And the only reason why we're doing that is so that we can just hang out and like know each other. You know, it's not, I only have them 9 days a month, you know, and so you got to know each other. And during that time, it's like what we're doing is we're learning the old school way, because I'm trying to tell them in this era, like the era that Gary and I grew up in, you know, there was something to be said for like math and science skills, all this. There was a certain track to take, whatever. I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think as my kids grow up, it's essential they learn about philosophy because I think that when I was growing up, philosophy didn't really matter, and I think we're going into this realm where there's so much people are very confused, and they're like really seeking something, and they don't even know what they're seeking, and I think that this is going to leave people in this kind of zombie state, and there's going to be a huge advantage to understanding the philosophical kind of construct of life, and that's just something that the average person now just has spent zero time on, and so we're kind of like we're living our life in that way in the household, because as you correctly stated, unfortunately we will die, and then you start really thinking about the full spectrum of your life. You're thinking, what's the point? Well, you have right now. I mean, you have this time now, and I'm not going to spend it with like constant stimuli, on the phone or whatever, like all the stuff. And I also don't go around telling people that, because there's a part of whatever part of life you're in, you just go with it. I mean, I don't like have a crusade against the phone or something like that. I'm just like, look, if you want to be on the phone, be on the phone. I'm not going around shooting on people, telling them they should be doing this or doing that or whatever. Now, personally, seems a bit crazy to me. Maybe it's because I had done some time in the media business, and everybody's always saying to me, like, why are you not on Twitter? Well, it doesn't match my philosophy, because let's say I hired a 25-year-old to make posts on Twitter that you think are from me. Then I have to sell you stuff to pay for the 25-year-old. The whole thing is a sham. So, like, is that really what you want me to do? I'm sitting over here writing newsletters just because I enjoy writing. And if you want to read them, you can read them. If you don't want to read them, you don't have to read them. There's no advertisement in there. And I think people are just baffled by that. But I'm thinking, as we start talking about these topics, like what Gary was saying, that's the point of everything. Is like, you do stuff that you enjoy doing. Everybody in the world, everybody has something that they're good at doing. Every single person. And the actual purpose, of your working life is to find that thing and to do it. It's not to make heaps of money or like get over on people or control things or whatever. Like, you're happy when you're doing that thing you're good at doing. It doesn't matter what it is, and it's not like you don't want to make money. Like, obviously filet is better than, rump steak, right? It's like that's nobody's going to dispute that. And so it's fun to do fun things in life and live where you want to live. And it's cool to do that stuff. But the point is that the happiness is in doing that thing. So, I mean, that's my philosophy, is like, I'm not going to really play that game of trying to be in the battle of control and all this stuff. Like, I saw the thing Gary's talking about with Zuckerberg came up on the Bloomberg, and I'm thinking, like, yeah, I mean, obviously. So, like, it's like, what good is that now? Because, like, hey, if we were to have sued you back then, we would have been buried with like 100 years of papers and filings and administrative tactics. Anyone would have gone bankrupt doing that. So what good is it now? It's useless. I mean, too late, right? I mean, anybody that knew that was happening, that was smart, kept their mouth shut. People that knew it was happening that were not so smart spoke up, and then there was a lot of people were canceled. It's like they were like really canceled over saying like Facebook's censoring information, and people were like, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, well, I mean, turns out you weren't, but too late now. Your show's canceled. So like, it's like, to me, it's like sometimes you learn and you understand the philosophical construct of the situation, and then you just be quiet. I mean, not every skirmish is a smart time to pick up a stick and go swatting at people. Sometimes you just sit, you chill out. I mean, there's a flow of life that's going on. And so like watching that flow and sitting sometimes is something that people have a hard time doing.
Yeah, some very good points there. I want to touch on what's going on with the US presidential election. Very bizarre events, the Republican candidate nearly getting assassinated, the Democratic candidate dropping out of the race, his replacement, Kamala, pulling out all the stops when it comes to Soviet-era policy, price controls, taxes on unrealized capital gains, basically a promise to punish the undeserving rich people for some reason, this appeals to a lot of people. Gary, I know you've spoken before saying you didn't know if the election was actually going to go through and happen. And you alluded to that it was going to be wild, and it certainly has been that way so far. What are your thoughts about how all of this is unfolding and this kind of, you could call it communist policy that's being put out there by the Democratic Party?
Yeah, not sure how else you would define it. Look, I really appreciate what EB's saying about, adding more gasoline to an already very drama laden environment. I mean, as I've been doing this stuff on video and audio, whether it's Twitter or this, one thing I've recognized now is why media does what it does, because like once you get this audience and you do these things, it's kind of like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? It's got to be exciting. And like I have made a commitment. One, I don't take money for this. This is, to me, my karma play. It's an education play. I don't think all you got to do is know my name. And I'm not saying that I'm right, but I do have a different perspective. And I think there's a lot of really cool people out there that have done things in their life that may provide for better education than what we've been doing over the past 40 years, because I see no one, and I mean no one, coming out of the education system that is well equipped for anything other than going to classes. And even those, I'm not sure they can make them on time and keep them on time. For me, COVID, what really woke me up, I realized, oh, wow, so I get to go to jail if my kids don't go to school. Talk to a divorced family like him and me. My kids weren't in the system. They were outside of the system, which they were awesome outside the system. But now they go in the system. I go to jail if they don't go to the system. But the system itself, that private school, Shorecrest, had no obligation to stay open during COVID. So now what do we know? Oh, we have an obligation to deliver our people to the prisons, but they do not have an obligation to show up. So for the last 3 years, I've been spent a lot of money just getting organized into a property, a bigger place than he has. But my deal is, hey, I'm going to be able to do school here. I will be able to take care of my children here. I will be able to put up some of my family and neighbors. I will be able to store food, have an education system, and you can't get into my place unless you start jumping fences and being willing to get on film. And because I think that's where the world is going right now. I think until people decide what order is, they're going to have disorder. And it's just not about chaos. It's just show me some children or some dogs. I'll show you dogs and children. If they're in a disciplined, clear environment, they're better and they're happier and they're more productive than when the rules constantly change. It's confusion all over the place. And I just think we're going through a moment, man. I think we're in the fourth turning and we're going to have to suffer a little bit. I think we have a lot of freedom. We have taken totally for granted and have not really thought about what it's cost us. All this free stuff. Like I don't accept money from advertisers either, dude. I just don't like it. Hopefully this generation is going to wake up and realize, hey, you're probably better off paying somebody $2 for their content than buying Netflix and a lot of other stuff. Like he doesn't have any TVs. That is the absolute great. Hey, I'm out, dude. I'm not playing with y'all's drama anymore. I'm not going to be a participant. That's the right way. We have to stop supplying energy and fuel, gasoline to the enemy. And like Facebook for me has been an enemy of this country for years. I've never used it. I don't like it. I don't like him. And I think right now he's like, I can't believe his lawyers. Like maybe my brother thinks he's had a moment of clarity. And like, I get it. Okay, maybe people can't come awake. But it's pretty clear to me that this has not been the open market in the last 20 years that America was built on. And to me, at my age, the biggest thing I'm going to do is not make some more money, but it's actually help identify, hey, this doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, doesn't feel right. And maybe we need to take a little action and provide some bridges to some sanity. Maybe we don't make it, but at least I try, right? What do you think, EB? Is it useless to even give it a whirl?
Well, I mean, nothing's really useless because you do it for you. That's what you're really saying, is that you don't know if you're going to help someone, but you're putting it out there, and there are people that want it, that are going to find it, and that's cool. That's like, I have a huge book over here about the brain, and I have this problem where I have both sides of the brain are active, and what it means is that the Bloomberg is over here is the numerical side, and then over here is the writing side, and like, I've got a new book coming out next month, very similar to what you're talking about. It's like stories. It's just stories from my life. And some people will hate it. There's no stock tips in there. Some people will like it because they'll say, wow, I have a dyslexic son that, I'm worried about, and here's the story about this guy with like severe learning problems, that whatever. Well, that's the point of putting that out there is, I mean, the Amazon royalty is like $3, so it's like, there's like, it's a lot of entertainment for $3, and some people will find it. And so I think there's something like really beautiful about doing something because it's what you do, and you kind of say to people like, that's what, and this is how artists used to be, right? There was something called benefactors. They would have somebody would just give them a little bit of money for a studio and say, go paint stuff or go write stuff or go perform or do whatever it is that you do, just because that's what you do. And we lost all that because we got into this thing of like, you got to be rich or something like that. And it's not really true, because you can blow holes in it all day long. It's like, what does rich even mean? I mean, doing something that you don't enjoy for money you're afraid to spend, is that rich? Working for people where you have to hold your nose and like, watch things going on that you're not okay with, is that rich? Doesn't seem rich to me. I mean, so yeah, I think the trick is like in the Zen scene, what you do is you just like walk around and look for something that gives you a spark, and so if your job, if you're saying your job is to give the spark, I mean, that's like the best job in the world, is to just spark people, and the fact is that we have enough. I mean, you're not in this thing where you're like, oh, I don't care about it's not like that. It's like that's a lie. Everybody cares about, this human journey and having comforts and stuff, but it's like, you are comfortable. So like, there is no like, once I get over there, then I'm going to really do something I like. It's like, why don't you just do something you like now? As to the moment thing, I don't know. I think it's wise to go to the Chick-fil-A drive-through and watch, people that come through, and then ask yourself, what kind of moment are they having? I don't think there's a lot of critical thinking going on, and I think something you said is accurate, that real change happens with pain. I just went and visited a portfolio company last Wednesday that's in my newsletter portfolio. I met with the CEO, and he said something in conversation. He was like, hard times create good habits. And he was like, good times make people lazy. And the corporate culture at this company is all about pennies and process, and everybody's wearing like those Dwight Schrute, tucked in shirts that are short sleeve, they're like buttoned with it, it's crazy. But he's right. It's the hard times where you really do some thinking about things. And so, if you look at your life in that way, it's like, it goes like this, and it's like, if you take those swings, then it goes higher and higher. And then you look back and you're like, wow, I mean, I was heartbroken in the 7th grade when I broke up with my first partner. And I can't even imagine, if I didn't go through all these journeys, I would have never done all this stuff. And that's the way people should look at their life, is like, this is you have these pieces on your journey. And so your job now is to give the spark. What people do with it is unique to their journey.
Fantastic thoughts from both of you. I want to shift over to central bank digital currencies now. EB, last time I spoke with you, you said that they are absolutely coming. You will accept them. You will use them because there's going to be no choice unless you want to be completely outcast from society at large. I was discussing how people like us who love heading to backwater places could maybe dodge that. But your thoughts were, well, you got to come back eventually, and then they'll have you. Thailand is already experimenting with something like this. They're giving out a digital currency to some citizens and limiting what it can be used to buy. Will they be able to just bribe people in the West at some point and say, everyone gets $1,000, but you need to sign up for the new Fed wallet? Is that what's coming on the horizon?
Well,
EB, I'll
all
start
right,
with
look,
you on this one.
back to the Chick-fil-A drive-through. If all they take is FedCoin, I challenge you. Will someone really be driving through there with something else? So this is a complicated issue, right? Like, I wrote a book where I talked about FedCoin, and people assume that I'm like anti-Bitcoin. It's not true. I have Bitcoin. What I'm not is like one of these people that's like walking around with my phone, asking the Starbucks people, like, can I pay with Pancake Coin? It's whatever. I don't care. To me, it's like you own some Bitcoin, you own some gold, you own some stocks, like you own a place to live. This is what you do. Okay. This is how you live, right? It's like you don't trade on revolution events that are at the very tail of the distribution curve of likely outcomes. Now, I wrote this FedCoin thing in 2016. That's a long time ago, so that's when I wrote this thing, and I still believe it. I think that the central bank digital currency solves a few problems for the control people. And one of the problems is it totally eliminates counterfeiting. So you can't counterfeit it, because what happens is all the wonderful things about Bitcoin are not present in the central bank digital currency because it's a closed loop ecosystem. The thing about Bitcoin is we have so many distribution nodes that it's pretty much impossible to manipulate. But in the central bank digital currency, everybody thinks it's cool because it's like Bitcoin, since it's on your phone, but it's not cool because every serial number of every dollar is like looped on this blockchain, and there's no outside eyeballs that mess with it. So it solves the counterfeiting problem. Number two is it gives digital control of every single serial number of every single dollar. So it's like if I want to stimulate you, or if I want to punish you, or whatever. And I think people, they really miss that because I used to play liar's poker when I was at reform school. It's really fun, because you sit around and it kills like tons of time, and that little serial number can easily exist on a blockchain, and no problem. The third thing it does is it we're talking about taxes earlier. So it's like taxes really don't matter because if you look at like 70 years of taxation, they always get about 18% of GDP. So it's like how they get it is what changes. And so it gives the Congress, I have a cousin running for Congress, if that tells you anything about the type of personality he is, but it gives Congress the chance to go out and like curry favor from various parties, and to say like, well, maybe people that drive trucks are going to pay less, and then people that work in stores are going to pay more, or whatever. And so, but if you look, it never really changes. I mean, they don't end up collecting like 30% of GDP. It's always like 18%. So I mean, what it does is it creates like uncertainty within the people like us, and then we have to give money to these people and host fundraisers and whatever. It's like play the game or not play the game. But the point is with FedCoin is that you can just definitely collect whatever you need to collect, you collect. I mean, there is no evasion. And I think there actually is a lot less evasion now. It's not the same as, you can't like launder money anymore. So, I mean, there's things that happen. Like, I don't think they knew how to tax in NFT sales, or there's always like, the IRS is very much like the vaccine card. It's like they know what you tell them or something, and then they find something out later. Obviously but it's not like, it's nothing like what this system could be, if this comes into place. So I feel like people kind of misunderstand my take. Then they, after all that, they think, oh yeah, you're for that. It's like, no, you can understand something and not agree with it, and also watch it unfold all at the same time. Right? It's like, this is the old quote of like, you can have my body and not my mind. Does that make sense? But I think it's be hard. Like the gold bugs, I'm always telling the gold bugs, like, what are you going to do? You're going to be sitting over there with like 2 grams of gold, trying to like negotiate with the the store clerk, like forget about it. I mean, seriously, like forget about it, you know. And if you do something like that, if you have some underground activity, like I am rooting the people that don't comply, but I'm not publicly rooting for them. But privately, I'm rooting for you. Okay. Like you're a hero to me. Okay. So I want you to succeed. I just don't think you're going to be like in the Chick-fil-A drive-through with that. I think what's going to happen is like whatever activity you're involved in trying to like circumvent these things is going to be your private activity. That's your business. It's going to be very hard to like commercialize that and to function in a society that's decided that this is what they're going to do. It's going to be very, very hard. Like right now, it's hard to pay people in cash. I mean, if your father died and had stolen $3 million in 1985, that felt like a lot of money. And if you're still spending through it, it doesn't feel like very much money. And it's also really hard to spend it. You show up at Whole Foods with that and none of the registers take it. Okay. So like, it's getting difficult. You can't even go deposit. Like at my bank, you take in the money and they charge you a fee to deposit. It's bizarre. It's like 5 basis points or something. But I'm like, what is the deal here? I mean, you can't even, you know, it's cash. I'm not going to say it's useless because it is nice to have like, you know, 20 or 30 grand in cash or something if there's a hurricane, but it's not exactly an option. I mean, $100 has been the biggest bill since they took away the $500 bill, I think. And $100 doesn't get you very far. In New York, it's like lunch for one. So that's what I think. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great thoughts there. Gary, your views on central bank digital currencies, how close do you think we are to potential adoption of some sort of Fed coin in the United States? And do you think ultimately the public at large will accept such a scheme?
I think the public as a group of people will accept whatever they're put in front of their face, sadly, because they have no discernment, no education, really. It's just whatever the next quickie is. Look, I personally, I mean, I think we have to identify what is a CBDC. Is it a 24/7 product? Is that what everyone's imagining? Because I've never seen the U.S. government or any other government work 24/7. So I'm a first call foul on it. That like it's going to be really hard for them to go 24/7. No bank holidays. I mean, there's no more than 40 hours a week that you can do banking out of 168 hours. But maybe they get there mechanically. I think there's going to be 108 CBDCs. They're going to all try to compete with each other. That's good for us. And then I think, you know, we get to decide, hey, are these on the public blockchain or the private blockchain? All of them will be private. And then people get to decide, EB gets to decide, hey, do I want to buy Bitcoin or do I want to play with this currency over here? It's going to be so obvious which one's better. That doesn't mean that, like, I like the fiat system, man. I get a margin call, I get a week. Gary, it's $2 million. Okay, give me a week, dude. If that was Bitcoin, it's gone. I had $2 million. Bye-bye. So there's some real benefits to being in the fiat system, especially if you have relationships and you've managed them over years. I don't think they're going to work 24/7, man. I think the beauty behind Bitcoin is, first off, if I never go to Chipotle's, I'm okay. Like, I think a retailer who decides he's not going to take a US dollar when it says on it that this is legal tender, I drop $100 on a restaurant and go, dude, you can use it or not use it, but I paid my way. It says legal tender. But I'm not going to argue with someone if they make me use their credit card. I'm not going to do business with them. Costco asked me to stand in line, put a mask on, and I stopped spending $12,000 a month there 4 years ago. And I've never been in there, and I will never go there ever again. I mean, if retailers and their stockholders want to tell somebody they're going to only use Cuckoo coin, then awesome. Like, everyone gets to decide what they want to do. They can or cannot go in that store. They can make a rainbow coin, a girl coin. I don't really care, man. If I'm a retailer and I'm advising someone, I would say, take whatever the damn currency they give you. I can show you how to clear all of it within minutes. It's not that big of an issue. if you have one customer come in and buy $100 worth of something with rubles, it's not going to break your FX fucking position. And you said yes to a new customer, and you get to figure out how to solve that $100. I don't want to deal with the government. I don't want to deal with a government that says, hey, by the way, we're going to change the rules. Telegram, you're going to prison. Like this might be the point. If you're going to insert all this draconian overwatch and approval seeking, maybe humanity gets to a point where they, this is just a bridge too far, and we're gonna start saying no or fighting back, right, more aggressively than we are. Clearly, I think more people are waking up today than there were yesterday. People are starting to go, oh. Now, on this CBDC thing, one of the reasons I really like it is I think if you walk through the construct, you're going to find out we don't need JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. We don't need any middlemen. You don't need Visa and MasterCard. Like if I'm Visa and MasterCard and I look at the Fed wire, I'm like, wow, why am I needed? Right? Like why? Because those two companies are worth $1 trillion each. MasterCard and Visa, about $1 trillion. What purpose are they serving if the Fed is right there? Right? You're literally doing what Bitcoin does. You're removing intermediaries. Bring it. More transparency has to be good. EB, you think that's totally ridiculous? But I mean,
I don't think so.
This very competitive environment, right?
I don't think it's ridiculous at all. I mean, it's philosophically true. It's I mean, and whenever we're talking about an unknown period, it's like having a thesis is not ridiculous. I mean, because we don't know how it'll go. I mean, we know the technology. I mean, you better than anyone know what's possible, and there are coins that are A-list coins that are really technologically advanced. I mean, like next level, and they're a bit lost in the sea of 13,000, small coins. So it's very difficult and everybody's on this kick of like, well, I want to speculate on that. Do you notice that? They're like, I got to buy it for 1/100th of a penny before it triples, and it'll change my life. But I mean, what we're talking about is way more structural, because I mean, who knows? Like who knows? And then why, maybe you can't you don't have to make a profit on everything. It's kind of like this whole COVID notion of like, I got to sit at home in my recliner and like gamble on random coins or something. It's kind of like, really? I mean, is that really what you're doing? I mean, by the way, I see people still not really totally tapped out of that mentality, which I think is like somewhat alarming, and so like everybody talks about all this, like, is the Fed done? Is this, which is so funny because I mean, for a free and open market system, we spend about 80% of the news time talking about the Fed committee, and who has, I think, the world's best PR firm working for them. If you notice, if you go back and read through the head, which I sometimes put these in my newsletter, where it's like all they're doing is managing. They're just managing a narrative. This Edward Bernays is one of my favorite, historical figures who invented, PR propaganda. I mean, it's Freud's nephew. People don't really know that, but he doubled the market for people who smoke. And he was like, tobacco companies couldn't believe it. He's like, oh, I can get women to smoke, no problem. Give me like 6 months. And but anyway, but I'm convinced the Fed runs the world's best PR system. But yeah, I mean, so you sit back and you're just like, we don't really know how that's going to play out, but we do know, what's out there, and we do know that more choice is better for people. Always. I mean, the more participants you have in a market, the better. The more centralized something is run, the worse it is for the average person. But to make a prediction of how it's going to go, who knows? I mean, it's impossible. It's only a prediction. And at this point, the technology is so powerful that you wonder, will we look back and think to ourselves, wow, I mean, Lenin had it right when he said that the capitalists would try to profit from the rope you were going to use to hang them. It's like, that's possible. I mean, I hope people maybe, demand. I mean, if people demand loud enough, then they have to slow down on the draconian stuff. But I'm not really an advocate for that, because I think it's just, you have to let it happen. I mean, it's like I'm not going to be standing around, with a sign saying, time to revolt. I mean, that's that hasn't worked out well for a lot of people. You end up with a Wikipedia page and nobody remembers you. But this is going to be.
You're going to support people that do.
I'm an advocate for the individual. I mean,
Yeah.
My new book is all about how to survive and thrive in a world that wants to control you. I mean, it's just like, how do you do that from a young age on? How do you do it in a corporation? It doesn't mean you try to cause trouble. It just means that like, I just never really did well in that foot soldier environment.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. It's hard, to if you're younger, if you're watching this and you're 25 and you work for some big corporation and you got some like middle manager guy, that's clubbing you on the head, and you don't understand what's going on. It's confusing. You don't understand. You're really trying your best, and you're independent minded, and you're in the wrong place, and you just don't know it. And so for you to navigate from there, to Gary's house is it's a hard road. It's confusing, and it's going to be bumpy, and you're going to make it though. But it's not going to be smooth. And the best thing you can do is work on your thinking. That's the number one thing you can do, is to work on your thinking. This is not going to be a quick process. I read a story a few weeks ago about, when I decided I wanted to learn about these things. I was up at 4:00 in the morning, reading books, drinking coffee, and like just constant. I was just tearing through anything I could find. I was traveling to meet people and asking questions or whatever. And that's what happens when you decide you want to learn something. And you find people that can help you, and people like you or me are willing to help people because it's fun. It's like you watch that light bulb go off in somebody's mind. There's nothing like it. So will the light bulbs all go off? I'm skeptical. So I hope they do, but maybe not. They didn't seem to go off a few years ago. People that bucked up too hard got clubbed.
Yeah, absolutely. Very fascinating thoughts. Really enjoying this conversation. I want to end on Bitcoin and gold. Gary, I know you're a huge proponent of Bitcoin. We talked about it last time I had a discussion with you. EB, you used to have some reservations, I believe, in the past. It seems recently you're at least aboard the train a little. You hold some Bitcoin. I don't think you're one of the fanatics who believes that it's going to change the world. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And the gold versus Bitcoin debate has been going on for quite some time. Maybe we can spark it up here. My question here for both of you is, should you hold gold, Bitcoin, or both? And what are the main differences you see for yourself personally in holding both assets if you do? Gary, I'll go to you on this one first.
Yeah, thanks. I've only got a few minutes. I got to go bring my kid to one of my children to a dentist.
No problem.
Look, I have gold, I have silver, and I have a lot more Bitcoin. I have both of those. I love the transportability of Bitcoin. Until you've really done this before, and most people haven't, but when you move some money on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday from Bitcoin, and you realize, wow, that would not have been possible with any other form of payment. $1 million, $500,000, $100,000. It is like nothing I have ever used before. You know why? Because I've never been able to use anything like that before. That's just a fact, right? It is very, very liquid. And where I go with that is, because I'm a commodity trader, or that's where my background is. I am going to use Bitcoin to buy things at a discount, at a very heavy discount. That is my use case for Bitcoin. Otherwise, it's a total store of value. Same store of value that gold offered without the difficulty of gold. Gold is really hard to move. A couple ounces may be cool. maybe a pound, 2 pounds, 10 pounds. Try to put 10 pounds of gold on an airplane commercially. It's a bit of a challenge. The 24/7 piece of this, though, is just, for me, really brilliant. I like that it's transparent. I never bought that this was anonymous. I don't think anything I'm doing legally or illegally with US dollars is guaranteed. Like, just because I can be nefarious with it doesn't mean it's right. Okay, but the US dollar is so much easier to hide nefarious activities behind. We have a $1 trillion market cap and the worst marketing and PR program in the history of mankind due to its decentralized tribal nature. I don't know how anything gets to be $1 trillion in an $800 trillion marketplace, addressable market, with such a shitty marketing team. And that all went away January the 11th. You have the best salespeople on planet Earth, and they're going to sell Bitcoin, right or wrong, how they sell it. They are selling it, and people are going to buy it because that's how people get investments. They're sold these. So Bitcoin's going to play a role here. I suspect it's going to play a bigger role than people expect, but probably not the role that the purists were thinking. In 3 years we're buying peanut butter with Bitcoin.
Well, awesome thoughts.
You would use the Satoshi. You would use the Satoshis to buy the peanut butter, Gary. Yeah, that would be the way.
And I could build the case that at $1 million of Bitcoin, we might do that. But you have to get the numerator to a level where human beings can go, oh, that's worth a penny. Otherwise, they can't use it. They're not smart enough.
Look, I know we got to wrap up.
Let's just do this in the interest of time. Gary, why don't you quickly tell us about Cardone Digital Ventures, anywhere else you want to direct people online, then you can go ahead and take care of your business, and then I'll get EB's thoughts. That's
efficient. Hey, EB, one, thank you for joining. I'd love to meet you, have burger, beer, whatever. Thank you for having me on the show. It's at Cardone, Gary Cardone. Cardone Digital Ventures is an entity under a number of my entities that only focus on digital. Inside that holding is Bitcoin and some other coins, but also a company called Node 40. See, I think there's businesses to invest in the digital asset industry. They're longer plays than maybe the Bitcoin, but I've been doing this my whole life. So I really, once I get into an industry, I'm like, oh, wow, look at this financial forensics tool. To EB's comment earlier, hey, digital is hard to manage from a tax and accounting perspective. That is exactly what this company does. So you see a big problem there and you're like, Excel spreadsheet's not going to do it. Let's build something. So that's what I'm doing under Cardone Digital. And I'm trying to help people. Like, if I can't help people in this process, I don't need to make any more money. It's really a beautiful time to be able to launch a business and actually do it with really good ethics, and no one can pressure me into doing anything. So that's a really beautiful phase of my life. And I think it would be unfair not to share that with other people. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. EB, let's try to do that in a week or two, man.
Definitely. After the US Open, I'm around.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Gary. Let's get your follow-up thoughts, EB, on Bitcoin.
All right. Look, here's the deal. Okay. The way I see things is, like, let's say that, you've got a certain amount of money, and the reality is at some point you go from being a worker bee to being a custodian of your money for your kids or whatever. And it doesn't really take that much. I mean, with wealth comes responsibility, even with a small amount of wealth. And so the way I look at it is percentages. I want a certain percentage gold. I want a certain percentage Bitcoin. And the reason I want these percentages is because they smooth out life. If you look at that gold chart back to 2000, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like, it looks really smooth, and it's going up right now. It's going to go up some more. And so having a little bit of that and acquiring it over time is proved to be very smart. I feel that way about Bitcoin as well. I mean, I feel like it's going to go to 100 grand. I feel like gold's going to go to 3,000. And I feel like that doesn't really mean very much, because it's not like you're going to say, hooray, I'm going to sell that and, like, go on a cruise or something. I mean, it's not really like a speculative asset. It's like, if you are trying to build wealth, like, you got to remember something. Like, E.B. Tucker didn't start out poor, but also didn't start out like rich either. I was like 25 years ago, I was just a guy that was trying to learn and working and hustling. Okay. And as I made a little bit of money, like, here and there, I bought like an ounce of gold. It's like $350, $400. Then it was 450. Then it was 500. Then it was 550. I didn't really care. I wasn't like, well, I'm going to go sell the ounce of gold now and make the $50. I was just like, whatever, I'm trying to, I'm going to try to buy a house one day. So I'm trying to save for that. I'm just doing all this stuff. So like, that's how I see everything, is that you want to work on your percentages. So you get your Bitcoin percentage. It can be very small. And then you get your gold percentage, which can also be quite small, and then you get your stock percentage, and then you get your real estate, and then you get your lifestyle stuff. And then you do what nobody in America does, which is you live. People don't live. They don't live. They don't do it. They put it off for the future, but there might not be a future. So you have to live, So like, I love tennis. I love it. And I'm going to, I pay to go see tennis, and I pay to play tennis, and I have a coach named Jaime, who's like, really good, and he wants dollars. Can you believe it? He wants to get paid in dollars. And so anyway, but you do that stuff. You do all that stuff because it's really fun. It's not like super glamorous. I mean, I don't like, it's not like that. It doesn't really cost very much to have a hobby. And during that hobby, you don't think about anything else, man. You try to think about your problems when you get a tennis ball flying at you. It's impossible. And anyway, so my point is that like you need to have these things because they help you smooth out your journey. And your journey needs to be smooth, because if you're crashing into the rocks every couple of years, then you're no good to your family, because it's too volatile. So you have to like smooth out your journey. And the way you do that is by having this screen over here is Bitcoin, and this screen is gold, and these other screens are stocks. And there's a lot more stocks than there is Bitcoin. There's a reason for that. This is equity in businesses, okay, which is also very useful. This is your hard assets, and that's the way you look at it. And there will be adoption. There will be all these things are going to happen. It doesn't matter, and so you're not planning for that. What you're planning for is to have a fun life. And part of how you do that is by smoothing out the rough edges.
Well, tell us about the Tucker letter. Tell us about your upcoming book, and anywhere else you want to direct people online.
Tucker letter, ebtucker.com. If you're not reading it, you're missing out. And if you don't want to read it, that's fine too, because we don't have anything to sell you. I don't sit on any boards of any companies. I think people are very confused by that. I resigned from sitting on boards last year, and people just seem baffled by that. And I got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks. It's all done. The problem is that some people have been like, offended. There's chapters that talk about, stuff that I've done. And I don't know, it's really tough, man. This book is from the heart. This book is going to make people cry. It's a collection of stories from my life about a journey. This is a beautiful journey, but it's also been very difficult. And I'm making an attempt. I don't know, I might regret this later, but I'm making an attempt to really share things with people, because I think there's people that are pretty lost. And I think that by reading somebody else's story, I think that they're going to maybe feel a little more comfortable with their journey. And I'm not doing that to help people. I'm doing that for me. I think that's very confusing for people. I believe in being selfish. I mean, I think you do things for yourself, and when you do them authentically, people that need it find it. I can't know people that are reading my book. I mean, it's probably will sell 100,000 books, and like I can't know that many people. I have no idea what their life is like. I'd be crazy to say I'm helping them. The fact is that some of the things I've been through, were difficult, and if I share them honestly and risk, sort of being vulnerable in that way, I think there might be people that say, you know what, that's exactly what I'm going through, or I was confused by that and that helped me, or something like that. And if so, read the Tucker letter. You can read it for free. The next issue is Thursday. It's every other Thursday, and otherwise you never hear from me. That's what I do. I write because I write. People that read, but I write because I write. I refuse to do any tacky marketing and bothering people with ridiculous promises, and I just don't care. I mean, there were people that wrote when I was coming along, that meant a lot to me. And I ended up writing for all those people. It's kind of crazy how that works. But anyway, but that's it. And then I'm going to hold you to it. I mean, I really want to come over to your area and kind of
Serbia.
the whole Baltics region. Yeah, I mean the whole region. I was just reading some stuff about that this weekend, about certain deals that are going on, gas deals and stuff happening over. But anyway, but the point, I don't want to come do that. I want to come hang out. I want to eat.
Let's do it.
Octopus and play tennis, and you have some of my favorite tennis players from there.
Yes, of course.
Generally from the region. It's not just one particular star, but they're regionally. There's like good tennis there.
Yeah, Yugoslavia had some incredible players. Obviously, we've got Djokovic here in Serbia. So absolutely. Yeah. Well, EB, this has been an incredible conversation. We went everywhere from markets to philosophy to the meaning of life. So I think pairing up you and Gary was the right choice. I'll put links in the description to the Tucker letter, as well as all the things that Gary mentioned. There'll be links in the description as well for everybody to check out. Thank you once again for coming on the show. It was a blast, and let's do it again.
See you soon.